Hello, and welcome to the Bot Nirvana podcast, where we dive into all things digital automation. I'm your host, Nandan Mullakara. While I'm not podcasting, I help people keep up with the fast changing digital technologies at botnirvana.org. I hope you enjoy the show. Let's get right into it. On our podcast today, we have JP Morgenthal. He is an expert in applied AI and automation and has held various CTO roles, including at Automation Anywhere and DXC. Join us today as we explore the convergence of RPA, BPM, iPaas, AI, and more. This is what Gartner is calling as BOAT right now. We also discuss the future trends in intelligent automation with AI agents and LLMs. Let's listen in. Hi, JP. Welcome to the Bot Nirvana podcast. Can we start with a quick intro?
Sure. And thank you for inviting me. Right now, I'm the VP of Solution Engineering for a company called CafeX Communications. I have a long history of being a serial CTO, industry analyst, solution architect and solution engineer. Been around the block quite a bit, especially in the automation space. With regard to automation, I spent time both as CTO App Services at DXC and also CTO of the Americas for Automation Anywhere. So I have a bit of an opinion in this space.
Okay, great. How was your experience being CTO of Automation Anywhere?
It was really a lot of fun. It was, a very unusual time because things were starting to really take off. We got hit by the pandemic. Even though the pandemic did a lot to improve the need and demand for automation opportunities, it also had a very strange effect on how businesses operated internally. And so, you're just getting your groove on and you're getting some momentum, and all of a sudden you hit this point where it's like ice and people are just sliding all over the place. And it took a long time to regain ground. But throughout that time, one thing that was clear was that there is definitely a need for this technology still in business, in the business universe. Mm-hmm. The ability to take screen data and incorporate it into automations, new modern digital uses is a key ingredient in today's automation climate.
Right. And the automation climate or ecosystem has been evolving, right? And you've been talking of this convergence of automation technologies for quite some time. And I know 5 years back, you wrote this article for GigaOM where you were talking of this convergence. And this convergence is in focus now with Gartner coming out with BOAT, which is the business orchestration automation technologies, the heart of which is orchestration or business orchestration. So you've seen that 5 years back. So what did you see at that point that prompted you to write about it?
For me, I'm a solution engineer,
right?
And it's all about the steps in order to complete an entire solution, and what pieces need to be in the box, so to speak, in order to provide a comprehensive solution. I might have to copy data off of an old PowerSoft or a mainframe application, and then I want to make some decisions over that. Or maybe I just want to integrate it into a new user experience where I'm bringing data together from multiple sources and then presenting that so that users aren't having to go to multiple places to try to understand a complete picture of what the data looks like or make a business decision. And then along those lines, there's the daily tasks that people do, that their front office tasks, middle office tasks, they're looking to, escape this need to do these repetitive tasks. And sure, you could do a lot of that in one tool, but that trying to get that one tool to do everything is where I saw the need for the convergence, because it's like, okay, well, I have the data from the screen. Now I need something to go out and compare that and integrate it into a database query. Mm-hmm. How do I do that? Right. And what do I do with that set of data? What if it brings back, 30,000 rows? How do I manage that? And then how do I present that effectively to a user without 6 months of React.js development? right? So, these things, it's all just looking at it from building the house, so to speak. What tools do I need? How do I do, which tool is going to get me there faster and better?
Yeah. And so it's always been that discussion around best of breed tools versus one tool doing everything, right? And you wrote that in that article as well. But what's been happening actually? I mean, is the best of breed winning, or are we going to see one tool do all of it? Are companies sticking to one tool?
Enterprises, I've found, have a conglomerate of tools. They'll have 3 versions of iPaas, and they'll
Right.
have 2. They'll have blue, what is it? UiPath and Automation Anywhere, depending upon who bought it and how they entered it, and so in the large enterprises, it's never just one.
Correct.
I think it's also about where are you finding the skills to do the work, right? When you start to go best of breed in this type of environment, it becomes really difficult because you're not going to have large teams of people that you can hire to build these out. Yeah, a big CRM or ERP, sure, you can go best of breed along there, right? You can have Oracle accounting with SAP supply chain because you have 40 people that are working on your back end systems that are doing all the work to configure these environments and then integrate them. Right. And here you have 2 people, may not even be the individual's full-time job, who are working on these tasks. So, for them, the best thing is to have a well integrated environment where everything is right there at their, in front of them while they're working, and that they can learn fairly easily, right? Because in a lot of these cases, if it becomes too difficult, they'll give it up. That's, unfortunate, but it's usually these tasks are not mission critical. And so if they take too long to complete, they get dropped.
Right. And a good point that even within enterprises, there are multiple groups. And I've seen within enterprises, like you say, multiple tools for the same thing. And so each group, again, is supported by a small team of people. And so they just cannot have so many people to support all these things. And so, yeah, we are looking at a situation like where we need tools, and that is a kind of a wish, like what Gartner is saying. We need to have this business orchestration, but it doesn't. I'm not still clear how this will come about. Do you have any thoughts how this will evolve and how we could get there?
I see 2 different markets, right? I see the Monday. What's the tool called? Something Monday?
Yeah, Monday.com, I think, right?
Just Monday.com.
Yeah.
So I see Airtable, Monday.com, Flow. I want to, write a Word doc, and then I want to take that Word doc and I want to send it out to 20 people. And then I want to watch my mailbox for the responses to see if any of them bounced, right? And I can do that with this connector architecture and something very simple like IFFT or Microsoft Flow, or we talked about active pieces, right? You plug all these things together without a lot of experience. And then you can integrate them into applications, right? So you can start with a spreadsheet and work your way to Monday.com very easily, right? Without a lot of experience. That's one group. And then you have the group that still has, let's say, I have a mainframe application and I'm IT, and I've been asked to help, facilitate data extraction from the mainframe, because we really don't want to rewrite that application right now, but we need those numbers as part of this process. And that data is then brought into SAP, and it's using SAP's own data integration tools and maybe even their RPA tools, because they have those built into the product. So, it's SAP trying to say, well, there is this existing system in the enterprise. We recognize that it's not, it's not their mission. It's not the system that they want to base their future on, but it's also, they're not ready to toss it.
Right.
And we're bringing it into the larger new digital process. So those are the two camps around this that I see. And I think it's the latter that needs the business orchestration.
Right. Yeah, so there is this, I mean, if I can simplify it, there's a legacy camp which has got all these earlier applications on mainframe, if you will, and so that group needs that, whereas a digitally first applications probably already has some of this built in, and still I think they need some orchestration or apps connecting it, like we spoke about active pieces and any of these apps can fill in. Yeah. So I think, yeah, that's a good way to look at it. And probably Gartner is looking at the second one, the legacy, and probably both maybe. What do you think in this case?
With boat,
Yeah.
I think boat's too big a concept
Yeah, it's
for
too big a
that
concept.
small task-oriented team who are just really trying to mitigate the overhead of redundant tasks, right? I'm in accounting, and we do the same thing every day. That's a lot out of what I saw that type of thing when I was at Automation Anyway, right? It's like we're trying to get away from this, right? We did it. We had a customer who actually was so enamored of the technology, they would hold internal hackathons, botathon, every couple of months, and they'd bring in different departments, and they told the departments, bring your problems. And it was really interesting once they learned what they could do with an RPA tool, how they were like, ooh, we have to just, go through this list and compare it. And then based on that, we have to put these X's in this PDF and send the PDF over. And right now we have people who are manually doing that. So we're going to do that as our project. And of course, we help them through it. But yeah, it was great. It was like, okay, we can open up this file and we can read the data in the file. And then we can actually open a PDF and make changes on PDF, right? And so that saved them,
A lot of,
hours.
and I've heard this lot of stories about this hackathons and how this has been helping people get excited and do a lot of this RPA innovations and probably some AI innovations too. But I think that goes back to your first point that, in the earlier point that, it's actually a nice to have and it's a vitamin, not a painkiller. You see, the whole automation technologies. So yeah, it needs that push and that hackathons and things like that for it to progress. So where do you think we are progressed with automation? Is it something where enterprises are completely on board now?
I would like to believe that companies recognize it as a tool that they want to make available. I think there's still a lot of concern about how do we actually manage this in the wild. There's a lot of important decisions that you have to make if you're going to open this up to the general community to ensure that people don't make accidental mistakes that could significantly impair the business, release information they shouldn't, open up ports that they shouldn't, right? So it has to go through some form of formal checking by an IT organization to say, in very much the same way that even in the professional world, Apple Store, right? Apple Store checks the apps to make sure there's no back doors, right? They try to protect their community. It doesn't go in the store if it doesn't, if it shows any kind of risk. I think you kind of need that perspective. You need that analysis done by individuals who are capable of understanding the risk and to say, yeah, okay, I don't care how you built the bot, frankly. That's your business. If it works for you, God bless you. But you didn't do anything dangerous to the business. So I will approve this one and then I will deploy it. So now it's available in the library of deployed bots that you can run. And that's the only thing is they can only run from that library is once this. So the business has to obviously pay for resources and pay for time to support that. And I think that's where things fall apart. It's like you said earlier, nice to have, not must have. Yeah, I don't know that I really want to spend, $75,000, $80,000 for somebody who sits there and approves bots. No, I don't think so. So we're not going to do the whole program, right? And then you have shadow IT that does it anyway, and better to ask forgiveness than ask permission and stuff like that happens.
So yeah, I just wanted to also talk about AI that's in the mix now. So there is this two groups that you spoke about earlier. One is that legacy people, if you will. I mean, you need not call it legacy, but the mainframe plus other people, plus the digitally native apps people. And now there is this AI first going to come in, and that's going to be even more challenging from a security perspective, right? So I don't know how that will come in, but from a Gartner board perspective, they are saying that the LLMs would be the brains, and that would plug in into various features like the process mining or the decision intelligence, or all those things would be, would flow in through this LLM apps, LLM brains to this orchestration. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so yesterday I was doing actually some more research into, is it agentic? Is that the right?
Agentic, yeah.
Agentic, right? And it's kind of like a crawl, walk, run. And agentic to me is kind of run, right?
Yes.
In many regards. And we're still kind of a crawl. And it's good to see where you can get to, but we're still in crawl, in my opinion. I think that there are some really great, easy to use LLMs that are small enough that you can bring them into your own environment so that you're not sharing data with a big public environment, right?
Yeah, the local LLMs, yeah.
Yeah. And frankly, you're doing, in many of these cases, you're going to be doing your own training anyway. So what's most important is expanding, the vector database behind these LLMs with your data.
Yeah.
So I think it's cool if you could take a screenshots of all the mainframe screens to an application, and you load that into your LLM. And then you were to say, I need these 20 fields. And it actually understood. And then you told it, now, and I want you to write a script for UiPath. And it actually, was able to then generate the bot that said, okay, you're going to need this component, start this up, go to this screen. You're going to need to log in. So get a username and password. Okay, then you need to go to this screen, then that screen. And in order to switch screens, I know you got to do F5, things like that. I think that there's a lot of inherent knowledge that you need to give to that bot in order to know that, in order to do that.
Right.
And then I think it's possible for it to write the script.
Yeah, no, it already does. I mean, ChatGPT already can guide you in terms of UiPath coding, though it may not be right all the time, right? It hallucinates quite a bit. But, yeah, you're right. I mean, one of the things I like in what you said is the whole RAG concept, right? Like, yeah, one is a local model, and then there is this vector databases with your embeddings with your data, which is what the LLM or the language model, a local language model, is referring to, and helping you with whatever you need to do in the organization. And so, but the useful thing, I recently made a video on RAG, and I was saying that if you want to make the AI useful for you, just like you said, it should be trained on, it should have the data, your data. And one good way to do that is to using RAG and vector databases. So, yeah, I mean, and I have this.
I mean, there's also multi-shot training, but you're certainly going to have a better response from the LLM if your data is incorporated into the vector database.
Yeah. No, there is this machine learning which we can follow upon anytime, and yeah, that's there. But then there is also this new LLM plus RAG concept, which is really catching on. So also, yeah, you spoke about agentic at some point, right? So now we
Isn't
have this agentic part also coming in. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a little Star Warsy for me still. It sounds like it's a child of boat, right? In many regards, because isn't it really focusing on the business orchestration? It understands the various tasks and understands how to join the tasks together, right? And work with other bots to comprehensively complete a task. So one bot may be focused on correlation of data. Another one may be focused on transactional systems.
Right.
And then, these two bots could then communicate to determine, how the transactions that they're seeing today are really, compared to the historic, right? And so that things like that are really interesting, that, these two bots are kind of working in tandem. I got to tell you though, as I'm doing the research, in the back of my head, I'm just seeing the cash register going bing, bing, the like the gasoline meter at the pump just going ding, 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 ding. It's like, holy mackerel, $5,000 this month on requests.
Yeah, it's cloud all over again. Yeah, so this AI agent, that's very interesting. So we've been doing RPA and BPM and all that. It's all about being orchestration, right? We always had this concept of bots and bots working with each other. Now the AI area with LLMs, one of the major tools is LangChain, and you must have heard of LangChain.
Oh, sure.
And yeah, and their CEO Harrison Chase, I was here listening to him, and he was talking about how when we first came out with AI agents, and this was like a year and a half back with Auto GPT, what they thought is that we'll tell the AI agent something and then it will go figure it out and come and do the things, So it was like Wild West. And then the people were like, yeah, go make $1 million for me or go make me a influencer on Instagram and so
Right.
on like that. But then what was happening was that an unconstrained agent was not so useful. So now what they're discovering is that surprise, what you need is orchestration. Is that what we need is some control between these agents as they work together and they achieve their goals. So that orchestration piece is coming in. And so looking at it, yes, I mean, the whole concept is orchestration is what is going to be the centerpiece of the puzzle. So what Gartner is saying is true. It's the orchestration which will be the hero. Though only, I think, Gartner right now is saying that the orchestration, as per them, is going to be all this, if you will, these technologies which existed, which is RPA, BPM, low code, iPaas, that's there. And then within their board diagram, if you look at it closely, they have AI agents on the periphery, and they're saying AI agents in the future is the future. But then AI agents, by themselves, like you said, can come up with that orchestration, and so there can be an evolving ecosystem there, independent of this technology. So just coming up with another orchestration layer, which would be probably another option for people looking to do automation. I don't know how far they'll come within the enterprise space, but that's also another thing that's emerging. So having said that, so you've been in this field for so many years now, and you've seen this evolution of automation recently. So what do you think are the future trends of automation with AI and this orchestration?
Well, I think the piece that's subtly there, but not quite complete, is semantics.
Semantic, yeah.
Right? It seems, I mean, if you don't know better, use an LLM for completion. It seems like it understands you. Hey, it knows what gum is. It knows what a pool is. It knows what a pool is in reference to other words that are
Exactly.
in the
Yeah.
vicinity of it in a common language basis, right? Like swim. It knows that the words swim and pool are typically used in a common,
Context.
geographic space
Yeah. Yeah.
to one another.
Correct.
It doesn't know what a pool is. It doesn't know that a pool is an object that has water that people can. It doesn't have that object representation, the semantic understanding of what pool is. And I know that's a different form of AI, right? That is, a lot more closer to the AI that I think the industry was chasing before LLMs came onto the scene. And neural nets, things like that, where you're trying to emulate the way the brain functions, and multidimensional in a way that I think the human brain, for most people, can't even comprehend. The people who are like the doctors of AI and MIT, can think at 13 layers. Most people can't get past 1.5. maybe 3 if you're lucky, right? 4 or 5 dimensions all of a sudden starts to really stretch the brain. And these things, when they talk about, how many pieces of information are used into the LLM, and they talk about, I allow 3,000, right? That's dimensions. Each one of them is a dimension. It's insane. Who thinks in 3,000 dimensions? Quantum computing in the future will hopefully be really good at this because it's going to be multi-phasal and multi-state. But today's compute, 3,000 dimensions is a lot. So it isn't semantic. It doesn't understand the comprehension of these things. I think you need that in order to truly understand the nature of something and want to do something with it.
Yeah, no, I think humans always have to be in the loop. And yes, just going back to your earlier point of semantics, right? So I think the computers are getting some semantics. I mean, like you said, the whole vector embeddings, by having the knowing which are the concepts similar to it, it is getting somewhere. It has some semantics built into it. And remember, this is just the early days. I'm thinking even more training will probably get it into a much more better semantics. But I still think I think of, we need to define the semantics which it needs to know. It like our data, what what we think is something. We want some explicit data for it. Like Microsoft has got Microsoft Graph now, which is basically taking the company data, putting it into a graph, and the LLM uses that to generate the outputs, right? So which makes it better. Maybe it's still a study in progress, which we don't know whether the LLMs will get ahead and develop, be able to just learn everything on its own, or we need to keep giving it some of those things. But I still think that humans must be defining some part of it. Otherwise, it will be, out of control.
Years ago, I did a lot with ontologies. And in fact, I actually developed a product for Software AG years ago that was ontological based integration, data integration. So you integrated your data based upon an ontology. And so I really like ontologies. I think ontologies are the secret sauce. And I know there's some people actually doing work with ontologies and LLMs. I've seen them and some of their work, and they're heading in the right direction. So if you train on an ontology and the LLM begins to understand the graph relationship of objects, at least you understand now relationships.
So JP, this was a great discussion. Thank you for all these great insights. So before we go, if people need to find you, contact you, what's the best way to do that?
My website, I guess, is the best place to start with. www.jpmorgenthal, morgenthal.com.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. And I'll leave a link to your website as well as to your LinkedIn so that people can reach you. So thank you for being with us today, JP. This was great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I enjoyed it as well.
Thank you for joining the Bot Nirvana podcast. Appreciate if you can leave a review on iTunes or wherever you're consuming your podcast. Catch the show notes on botnirvana.org. While you are there, feel free to explore more free digital automation resources and more. See you next time.